Hello, this is Pure PhD.
And this is Mudita Heart, and we're talking about another Disney movie today. Before we were doing some Marvel Phase 4 stuff, but now we're doing stuff in Disney animation pictures, and today we're doing Encanto, which is the 60th film produced by Animation Studios, and it's this just came out on Disney Plus in January, I believe, and features a Colombian family called the Madrigals, a multi-generational family led by a matriarch whose children and grandchildren, except for Mirabel Madrigal, receive magical gifts from a miracle that helps them serve the people in their rural community called the Encanto. When Mirabel learns that the family is losing their magic, she sets out to find out what is happening, save her family and their magical house, and did pretty well box office wise. Did pretty well on Disney Plus, and the songs We Don't Talk About Bruno and Surface Pressure did very well on viral online on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's kind of been everywhere. It's got some Golden Globe nominations and Academy Award nominations. Has like this kind of big cast full of like really big name Latin American stars.
Maluma,
and also features original songs by Lin-Manuel Miranda. So it's got a lot of hype going into it. And we watched it like a month ago, but it's still like pretty fresh in our minds. It's pretty. I feel like we can still talk about it at this point too, because we can like kind of wrap our heads around it more than like something like Eternals, which is kind of hard to like talk about at this point. So, yeah, what are your like initial thoughts about it? Like just kind of going into just saying all that, Whoops.
just for journalistic integrity, some of that was from the Wikipedia summary.
Yeah.
Also,
Sorry,
it's from Walt Disney Pictures to clarify which studio was.
Yeah.
Animation Studios. I screwed up the name to myself.
Walt Disney Animation Studios films is the 60th Walt Disney Animation Studio film. Yeah. And I was just reading off the Wikipedia for this plot summary.
Yeah. Nothing too, yeah. I thought it was fine. I haven't really had anything very anti-Disney or Marvel to say regarding Phase 4 or anything. The songs are pretty good. Bruno is a little bit too catchy, if you know what I mean.
What do you mean by too catchy, if you know what I mean? Go into that.
So, specifically, when you talked about the song, you compared it to Frozen and Let It Go. And I thought, like, once you said that, I would be very annoyed by the song. And the song itself is sort of like it's very accessible. It's not like hardcore rap or rock where it's like covering like a college level, whatever. It's just like, we don't talk about Bruno.
We're talking about Bruno. It's like a more family friendly kind of song. To get an idea, even our like little our cousin's daughter was like talking about Encanto when we visited them last time. They're talking about like Isabella and stuff like that. They're very excited about the movie. I was hearing about the movie quite a lot on social media. It got my attention on like Latinx mental health social media because of its discussion of like intergenerational trauma. So that was one of the things that got my attention for the story. I was like, oh, okay, that seems pretty interesting. But yeah, on its surface, when I entered this hearing about it, like I was like, I wasn't even interested. I was like, why would I be interested in another Disney animation studio film? Like I didn't know what the hook was for me, and it wasn't because like typically I'm not into like I haven't been into a Disney animated film in a while, but it wasn't until like I heard about the multi-generational trauma kind of angle that was kind of like, oh, this actually sounds pretty fascinating. Maybe I should actually give it a look. And then I started getting into the music, and like it does have that kind of like they just burst into musical singing for like no reason, and they don't explain it in typical Disney musical fashion, but it's got that kind of like Lin-Manuel Miranda quick lyrics kind of style to it. So I don't know, I got into it when I watched it. And
he played Hamilton, right?
Yes. Okay. The inside joke is The inside joke here is that when we did Matrix Resurrections, that Agent Smith is played by Jonathan Groff. And Jonathan Groff,
I screwed up the joke.
my brother would keep saying, Jonathan Groff plays Hamilton, right? And I'm like, no, Jonathan Groff plays the opposite. Jonathan Groff plays King George III. So, yeah, you did the reversal here this time.
I did it by accident. I was trying to screw it up again.
You're trying to do
I screwed it up. I tried to screw it up on purpose. I
you
screwed it
double
up.
screwed it up, so you actually did it right this time. Lin-Manuel Miranda, okay, in case people don't know by now, plays Hamilton, which is also on Disney Plus. Lin-Manuel Miranda's now become like a
Disney legend.
Disney legend now. He's like gonna be in like the Disney canon or whatever at this point.
Yeah.
He's like on track for that. He's in Mary Poppins Returns. He's of course in Hamilton.
Yeah.
He did like songs in Moana. He also went to Hunter High School.
Nice.
in
Very good
Manhattan.
school, yeah.
Yeah, so for New York City fans out there, that's like a
very literate, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, and that was like not far from where he grew up in Upper Manhattan. So yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like it was a good movie. I enjoyed it quite a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking about like Phase 4 because we were talking about Eternals also, and there's certain things that doesn't have a hook to it, but thinking about it like just during this podcast, I was like, okay, it doesn't have like an action adventure angle like with the live action 50s Disney films like Treasure Island and stuff, and Aladdin and Sleeping Beauty, but not even just Cinderella, you know, like some stuff is just domestic family stuff, which Disney has always done.
Yeah, like this is so like as you're invoking like Phase 4, like family stuff, like this is a story that's like all about how my life got flipped. I don't know why I said it like that, but anyway, this is a story about like a family of I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
This is a film featuring a family with magical powers, and these are basically kind of like superpowers. So it's not that different from like a family like the X-Men or something like that.
Right, like I was thinking of the X-Men, and I was
it is.
It did occur to me like the Fantastic Four, like it feels like a Fantastic Four cartoon, yeah.
Right, it has a similar dynamic to like being like a family of like superpowered heroes like the Incredibles or whatever, but this time it's like a more musical fashion kind of like story, and then more kind of like dealing with like magical realism and that kind of fantasy rather than like fantasy elements of like, you know, princesses and like Western style princesses and like the quote unquote kind of things like that. But and it also features like these big musical numbers and these like fun, like really really fun animation sequences, I have to emphasize, because during all these big musical numbers there's really big huge show-stopping musical numbers that are like kind of worth the price of admission. And it's also about, in its root, a family story, which is like kind of the core of it. And there's not really like a really big like villain exactly that like feels like it's like someone that's like, you know, like a super villain like in a Marvel story or whatever, or even in Incredibles or whatnot. Like it's more about the family dynamics that are happening at the core of this story. And that felt like a really refreshing kind of take on this thing. It felt like something that I hadn't really seen in like in a story about superheroes and stuff before, which I think is like, you know, this is like, wow, this is really getting to the core of like what kind of might make like good storytelling in an era like this, because a lot of conflicts people are dealing with involving like this kind of stuff isn't coming from like, you know, punching a bad guy. It's like dealing with your own family and stuff like that. That's something that everyone can relate to. You don't really necessarily relate to like, you know, punching like, an evil villain or something like that. So that, I think that's a really, really interesting take for, and especially for Disney to take too. It feels like kind of like a natural thing that would be up its alley too. So yeah, I think that's a really great thing that they did with this story.
I mean, yeah, you got to modernize. You can't just always. You have to use diplomacy. You have to. We're in like COVID or post-COVID world, and
yeah, that's a great way of putting it. We're in a post-COVID world. It's not like we're gonna solve a lot of the issues we're facing as a society now,
Yeah.
post COVID, isn't like solved through like I don't know. I mean, I guess now with the news, we're recording this in like February, after in like
It's March now.
March now, in early March,
Yeah.
and like just a week ago or so, there's the conflict in Ukraine and stuff like that, and like it feels like in a post-COVID world, like people don't want, I don't know, like are kind of sick and tired of stories where it feels like everything's going to be resolved through violence and like escalating conflicts that don't really go anywhere, in like you know in all this cynicism and stuff like that. Like people want stories where it feels like we can have a peaceful resolution that can be resolved through like you know conversations and communication and emotional expression and like voicing things that might not be heard and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's something I like about this movie a
And
lot.
you were explaining to me how like I think it was this movie, right? Not the other movie where like they just zoomed in everything as like yeah, like right?
Wait, what do you mean?
Like it was all done through
Oh, yes. Yeah, this film was made during pandemic and like zoomed in, literally zoomed in. Um, they did voice recording for all the actors around the world during pandemic while giving creative direction, voice acting direction through Zoom is what I heard in the behind the scenes for this. So like this is like a film that was made in animation that was like done remotely. The voice acting was done remotely as well. So like we don't have to spend all these resources on like limiting ourselves to like just people who are local to a region, and like I was saying with the voice actors and the cast, these are people from all different parts of like Central and South America and like in the US also, that are like pretty big names, even if the average American might not know who they are. Like these are some people who are like huge, like people in like soap operas or something, or like huge musicians and stuff. But yeah, like you're able to get all these really big talents and really big names and like tell a story that's pretty genuine to people from these backgrounds and something relatable to people from these backgrounds, and also have their voices being heard like from real voices that aren't like a bunch of like people from Hollywood that like aren't actually like from these cultures. Like you're actually able to have these actual people from these places, like you wouldn't have in another way, take using this kind of like remote style of like recording to your advantage. I think that's really like this kind of great confluence of all these different forces at the same time with this movie. So yeah, definitely kudos for this whole creative process behind it. Yeah.
yeah, I felt like yeah, pandemic we should have did more animation, less live action, less more social distancing and this is very historic and could be the future of filmmaking. Very yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of a lot, right? Like thinking about like the future of filmmaking when like things could be more remote. Like yeah, I watched a lot of behind the scenes for a lot of these Marvel Phase 4 films that
Yeah.
we also did podcasts on, and a lot of them had to like switch up where they were doing live filming sets and stuff
Yeah.
like that, like where they did on location shooting and stuff, or they had to just change their schedule and just delay it entirely because like whole cities and countries were closed off, or they had to bring in cast and crew from a place because it was closing off due to pandemic and stuff during filming. So that like seeing that was actually a really fascinating story in itself, was seeing that behind the scenes and stuff, was like how they were reacting to like that situation unfold, that we were all experiencing, that even Hollywood experiences. Yeah, so I forgot where I was going with this, but yeah, that's just how we're all kind of adapting, and also finding new ways to find opportunities during these times too. It's
Yeah.
actually a really interesting perspective we're all finding as well.
It just occurred to me like it was probably done on a lesser scale, like Little Karibo or someone like on a YouTube series, just sending each other like the wave files to each other. Like
Yeah, YouTube. YouTube content creators and like very indie film creators and like indie animators and stuff like that. Like you little Karibos behind Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series. Like yeah, internet content creators are people who make films and content on like a budget of like one person living in their house and being able to make stuff for like hundreds of thousands of and maybe millions of people sometimes, and have that be a viable option sometimes. And yeah, that's something that's emerged in this internet era, and now we're seeing Hollywood take cues from that as well, learning how they can also take approaches to that as well. Like yeah, I was thinking about Phoenix Wright musical. That's
Oh
a
yeah,
group
yeah,
of people who
yeah.
like are they casted people from like all over the U.S. I believe, and maybe outside the U.S. I don't know.
Not sure. Yeah,
Not sure, but yeah, that was like a fan creation that like they had people from all over that like did voice acting and put together different reels and stuff like that, and had animatics and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. And now we're seeing like big Hollywood do like things on a bigger scale, for their products also, and now you get to watch it on Disney Plus as well. So yeah.
I think like Final Fantasy Seven OG has like this voiceover mod now that people are working on with people voice acting and like putting the voice files on like Nexus mods or something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Final Fantasy 7 mods. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. This is also fan content, I guess.
yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, I guess yeah, there's a lot of different possibilities that are opening up with the internet now, making content creation go like both ways and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess this is a whole interesting discussion in itself, just
Yeah.
discussing like how content creation can be more I don't know, remote
Yeah.
and whatnot. That's a whole new set of possibilities for
Yeah.
Hollywood and outside of Hollywood. That was like the whole thing with YouTube, was like it was opening up like film creators that like didn't have an option viable in Hollywood.
They couldn't go through the
Hollywood
cattle
system.
call. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The cattle call system and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Back to Encanto. Would you like to talk about your favorite character or story aspect of the film?
Let me think. I don't know. Favorite. I mean, like I love the story overall, the message.
Yeah.
And yeah, the journey Maribel goes on, I like a lot. As the one that doesn't have a special power, but like she ultimately is like one that has her own journey to go on, even though she doesn't have a power. And yeah, I like that character a lot. But like, yeah, I like how even like the story makes like characters you might think are kind of unlikable, like actually like really sympathetic, too.
Oh, like.
Like I feel like Isabella was like a character I might not have liked at first, but like they actually kind of make her go on a journey there, and of course the matriarch of the family is like seems like kind of really cold and stuff, but you get to understand her story and where she came from and why she is the way she is. So yeah, that's like really moving seeing those kinds of stories. And yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to those kinds of stories too, um, both in Latin America and outside Latin America.
Yeah, Disney is a world company, so yeah, and Disney Plus is a international platform.
Yeah, I mean, probably like most of the world has faced some kind of version of that kind of narrative in their family. Like I've talked to a lot of people in New York City who've like come from like different parts of the world, who like relate to some kind of like version of like family members acting in ways that might be like cold or guarded, or like more, or even more aggressive sometimes in their communication styles or something like that, or their approaches towards how they handle their families and stuff. And it, sorry, excuse me, my throat's drying up from talking about this. But but yeah, it often comes from these places of like this kind of like intergenerational conflict that like is rooted in something that's not their fault necessarily, and they might not necessarily have the resources to be able to heal that on their own necessarily. and then that's why something like Mirabelle's story is like, its own kind of miracle, as it were, you know. So yeah.
I guess because, like, they felt like bad. I don't know if it was a family pride thing or whatever, that she didn't have the power, or like the house. Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Like, I don't like, everyone in the family has a gift, but like you have a child who doesn't,
So yeah, she feels like driven to
Maybe like the older members are like, did we do something wrong or whatever? Maybe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, her family, like her, yeah, her.
Or does it make the family look bad, or the powers of the house look bad? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a moment where the matriarch is like, I don't know what's, she says some pretty harsh things to Mirabelle, we'll say, and like.
I thought it was a little too harsh, possibly.
I mean, I think no, it is very harsh.
Yeah.
Like she basically like the stance of the matriarch is that the family has to be able to contribute to the community, otherwise, like they're kind of like, they're like almost like where they're being discarded even and stuff like that, which is
to say it the nice way.
Yeah, like, yeah, and that happens in different members of the family too and stuff. And yeah, but like all these people have superpowers and stuff like that. It's like really kind of like unfair and messed up to think that way. And yeah, and Mirabelle finds her own way of like giving her gift to the family, and then also other characters find their own way of giving their gifts to the family. And also the kind of one of the lessons of the film is like trying to hold on to like a single idea of like what it means to like have a gift and being able to express it a certain way is kind of what like almost tears the family apart in that story.
Yeah.
And like is almost like what like you're supposed to like follow a certain kind of way of expressing yourself, and like with like only these kinds of flowers, or only this kind of power, or only this kind of power can be expressed this kind of way, or only these kinds of gifts are acceptable. Those kinds of things are actually the things that like are almost destroy the family, but you also understand those come from a place of like fearing like, oh, if we don't do these right things the right way, then like we're not going to fit in, and we're not going to be able to be accepted, and not going to be able to give back to the community and stuff, and we'll be ostracized as a whole and stuff. But the community comes back to help them all in the end too, as well, because of how much they've given. So, and yeah, that's also a wonderful message in this story too. In comparison, Eternals is like a complex, stressful plot that's not as like. It feels like it's less about like. It also is.
Is that about singing?
It's not about.
It's about
singing.
like it's about like quiet. And then
there's like quiet moments, and then like really dramatic, like stressful, like cosmic moments, and then there's like really personal.
Entire civilizations can be destroyed.
Entire civilizations can be destroyed. Then like there's a whole galactic thing happening. Then there's like a whole personal conflict between two people that's really devastating too. And then like
there's a bunch of climaxes in the film. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like a whole nother film we felt like we didn't want to cover today.
Yeah.
At this moment, because at least at this moment, because it was like kind of hard to really cover.
Yeah.
And also maybe like kind of like too much to cover in one thing.
Yeah.
But you can stay tuned for that.
There you go. Yeah, you got a little preview of that. Yeah.
Yeah, but Encanto is like a nice like if it's a feel good kind of movie, and like you definitely need that kind of thing. Whereas like Eternals is also nice to have. And like can be very thought provoking and stuff, but it can also be. I can understand why people would be stressed out and not necessarily want to be open to, not necessarily feel open or not want to experience something like that, or not have that experience resonate with them for we're just dealing with our own lives. I got other things to deal with. I don't want to deal with like shit like watching Eternals and like like the celestial being is like doing whatnot. Yeah, so, yeah, I got other problems. I'm trying to deal with my family yelling at me, so that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I got bills to pay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like I've thrown you off.
So anyway, I was gonna go into like we mentioned this before, but like it's a very interesting time period for Disney. Like, obviously the pandemic, and then like they're going on to like different era, like the Phase 4 era of like Marvel, where like there's no Captain America, there's no Tony Stark, and you have Encanto. Well, you have Eternals, which is like doesn't have that either, and like you have Encanto, which I guess it has Lin-Manuel Miranda Maluma, but like it's not. It is sort of like a traditional Disney, as I mentioned before. It sort of is a traditional movie, but it's like it's a little bit iffy if you figure. I'm surprised it did this well. Yeah,
Yeah, it actually feels like it's like going in like a lot of like traditional Disney templates of like it's about fantasy, it's about superheroes, it's about family, it's about healing and songs and stuff. But also it's about new kinds of things like mental health and uh de-escalation of conflict and like conflict resolution and intergenerational trauma
and
and
not
like
destroying a big bad or like a stepmother or that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it kind of even kind of touches on colonialism a little bit in this movie. It kind of
I
does.
forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah, like it like
at the end. Yeah,
we keep talking about like,
yeah,
intergenerational trauma, but like it does, even though it, you can't like go into it too much because it's like a kids movie. I mean our nieces are going to be watching this movie or
yeah.
whatever. But like, they touch on it. It's there. It's in the movie.
But like, if you didn't understand it, like it wouldn't bother you if you're like, oh, it's political or whatever.
Yeah, but like it's there if you see it, and
Yeah.
if you're looking for it, and you understand what's happening when you're looking at it. So, yeah, so it's getting it in there, and it's a very very modern kind of like 2020s kind of movie in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty good movie. I don't know if we have any other thoughts to wrap up on there.
Covered it pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. Eternals is gonna be its own kettle of fish, I guess. I don't know if you know the expression.
I actually don't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird expression.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, it's Encanto, thumbs up. Yeah.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah, so that gets 2 thumbs up. Definitely worth a watch on Disney Plus. Yeah, I would watch it again. And yeah, if you haven't heard the songs on YouTube already, we don't talk about Bruno, no.
It's like the new Fight Club.
Yeah, people.
We don't talk about Fight Club. We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Michael. We don't talk about Bruno.
The first rule about Encanto is we don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno. But hey, but Bruno's voiced by John Leguizamo, and I'm just picturing him being like, "Why don't we talk about me?" It's pretty messed up, man.
I wonder he might get sick of the song too. Now that I think about it,
lot. It's a lot. It's over and like hearing that over and over again. I'm almost starting to think people just don't want to hear about me.
Yeah. Or like as a relative who like keeps listening to the song, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a little kid, yeah.
But yeah, it's a good song. It's catchy. It's on every chart. It's a big song. But yeah, good movie. Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like some people didn't even know what the movie was about, and like if you watch the whole movie, it'll even give a richer context to that song too, I think. Some people I saw were just like, "What is this song? I'm not gonna watch this movie, but like, I don't know what this song is about. Why don't they talk about him?" But I think it's when you watch the movie, you get to really understand like, oh man, this is actually a really interesting story behind this song.
Yeah, I don't think it's like Let It Go.
Yeah, I get that impression. Even though, to be honest, I was hearing "Let It Go" in every single mall for a while. I was living
Dua
in
Lipa
Long Island at the time. Dua Lipa with
Elton John, yeah.
John right now.
Yeah.
Cold Heart.
Yeah.
But cold heart.
Yeah.
Hard. Yeah. But,
this is just a singing podcast at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth watching to understand the song.
It's definitely worth watching. Yeah.
Yeah, it adds to the context. Yeah. And there's other good songs in the movie as well.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, I'll catch you next time. This is Mudita Hart signing off.
Pure PhD out.
All right, take it easy.
Take it easy.